It's good to see everybody here this evening. I'd like to thank Lucas Hanneman and his wife Megan for their entertainment before tonight's gala. And as of right now, I'm going to ask Megan to sing "O Canada." And I think we should all join in. Stand and cheer. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Lucas. I'd like to introduce the National President of the Canadian Council of the Blind, Mr. Jim Tulkas, to give you a welcome.
Welcome, everyone. This night is all about you people, and a thank you for all of you for this evening. We are so happy from the Canadian Council of the Blind to have all these wonderful people here to thank tonight. And you make our organization go, and you're the key people to our organization. Thank you so much. God bless. Have a good night, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, Jim. I would now, Mr. Prowse, would you bring Jim over to table number 3? I think we have some work to do with a young lady that's about to be a recipient of the White Cane Person of the Year. And you got the microphone? Luna, would you please stand up? Can we get you over here a bit? Reach out and grab my elbow, young lady. Okay. And Mr. Tulkas,
hi.
We want to stand around. And we've got an award for you if you reach up.
Oh.
Jim is going to make a presentation to you.
Congratulations, Luna. On behalf of the Canadian Council of the Blind, the wonderful work you do in accessibility with the Treasury Board. It's fully to help people with vision loss, and we so appreciate the work that you do. Thank you. You want me to hold on to that for a second?
Take this and bubble wrap it for you. We wouldn't want one of your daughters to drop it. Right now, every year, the president of the Canadian Council of the Blind and looks far and wide to find people that are deserving of the President's Award. And this year we found two. So the first one we're prepared to discuss is going to balance for blind adults. And Jim, you might want to talk about our friend.
So the award is going to Balance for Blind Adults. Deborah Gold, the Executive Director, I'd like to present you with an award.
Thank you, Jim, for those kind words. Hi, everyone. I'm really sorry that I could not be with you this evening to celebrate together. I'm sure it feels wonderful to be together again. And for sure, there's so much to celebrate in being together again right now. And great for you not to be sitting at home on a computer like I am in my office. I would have loved to see you all and chat with you in person, and I hope to do so again very soon. Aristotle wrote, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." I believe that our achievements at Balance have everything to do with our habit of excellence. Over the past 35 years, there has been a strong core commitment to supporting our clients' welfare and daily living concerns and needs. Our excellence starts there. What we have been able to achieve in the past 6 years, and even more specifically in the past 2, is related to being able to build on that core commitment using a strengths-based approach to leadership and inspiring creativity and innovation in our team. Our website states that we listen, we teach, we support the whole person. This is our core guiding principle, both foundational and aspirational. In order to do this, we have developed a strong team that works and communicates well together. On March 13th, 2020, I made the decision to close the Balance office for what I thought at that time might be a few weeks. Over the course of that weekend, I spoke to each member of our team, a small frontline group, and all agreed with immediate willingness and enthusiasm that we could pivot to online service provision by the next week. And so we did. I'm so pleased and proud of our staff team then and since for working together and pulling as one, applying all of their skills and knowledge and making the most of a different and challenging situation. Our team was there for our clients immediately, and we have been so proud of being able to turn on a dime and provide many types of supports they could not get elsewhere. Early examples included providing help with getting food and medicines, and creating social connection through the telephone and computer. In that very first week, we established the continent's first pandemic-related telesupport team for people who are blind. We hired help and we redeployed in-person staff to that team. And over the course of the next year, we called every client who wished to have a regular check-in call. In addition, we amped up our mental health support services, tripling the number of counseling groups we were holding weekly. We also added many virtual groups in our repertoire, all of which were taking place within a month of the emergency declaration, and we applied for and received grants to provide much needed one-to-one counseling to our clients. Finally, in year 2 of the pandemic, we embarked on a serious campaign of vaccine education and engagement, and we partnered with Toronto Public Health, the City of Toronto, and the Centre for Independent Living Toronto to provide vaccine education and support to our community. Balance continues to be an active member of the City of Toronto Vaccine Accessibility Task Force. Due to our commitment to vaccine engagement, we now estimate approximately 98% of our active clients are fully vaccinated. As we heard so poignantly at yesterday's Vision Health Summit, COVID has pointed up numerous and large gaps in our health and rehabilitation care systems. Balance is proud to have been able to truly help our clients to bridge these gaps. Before, during, and if we can start to say it now, moving into a post-pandemic world, Balance has built our reputation on the foundation of our vision of an open world for people living with sight loss, and on our core values of empathy, trust, respect, independence, and inclusion. Our team works to live these values as we deliver our services, and we are deeply grateful to have our service recognized through this prestigious award from the Canadian Council for the Blind. Greta Thunberg wrote and said, You are never too small to make a difference. Balance is a small but mighty organization that is making a difference every day, and we thank you very much for recognizing these efforts. It means a great deal to us.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Deborah.
Now, Keith and Jim are going to stay up at the front. It was a tie to who was going to get this President's Award this year. And we were looking at saying, okay, we'll do one this year and we'll do one next year. And the problem was Keith just received it on behalf of Balance because he's the chair of the board. And then on his own right, we wanted to recognize him, but we didn't figure we could do it 2 years in a row, so we thought we'd get it all over with at once. With that, I want to recognize Dr. Keith Gordon, who I met 2.5 years ago and found him straggling down a golf course into sand traps. And he felt that he was retired but didn't know what to do with the hours after golf, and so we gave him something to do. Since that point in time, we've done about 4 or 5 studies, got 4 or 5 more on the go. But the most important one is which there's a number of companies here tonight and a number of stakeholders here tonight that contributed to. But in 2007, when Keith was working for the Canadian National Institute for the Blind Foundation, Keith released a study on the cost of vision loss and blindness in Canada. And now, last year, and still working on it this year, Keith released through the Canadian Council of the Blind and the work that we all did together through Deloitte Economics in Australia, we released the most important study on vision loss over the last 13 years, which has been widely acclaimed from England, United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and United States and Canada. And it's really important. It's important for everybody here because when the government says we have to look at the medicine and we have to look to determine whether the people really need it, they have support to take to CADIT and to the Canada Health Organization. So for Keith, for all your work in the last 40 years and in the last 2.5 years with the Canadian Council of the Blind, we would like to recognize you with the President's Award. And Jim, if you want to make the presentation.
Keith, on behalf of the Canadian Council of the Blind, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Jim.
And thank you for the wonderful work you've done, Keith.
Thank you. I just wanted to say a couple of things about my golf game, Mike. I've always been a believer that research should work very closely with advocacy, that research should be a driver of advocacy. And I think it's essential that all advocacy be connected to some sort of evidence base. Working with CCB, the wonderful people at CCB, we've been able to achieve this, as Mike has pointed out, in the last couple of years. I'd like to say thank you to the people at CCB, in particular, Louise Gillis, Jim Tulkas, Jim Prowse, and I have to say thank you to this man too. It wouldn't have happened without the three of you, and particularly Mike Balajan. I'd like to give you a bit of applause because you never get it. And you deserve it.
Thank you.
I think we've mounted some rather effective advocacy campaigns, which you will hear more about this evening. I think most of you have been involved with a lot of this campaign that we've had going the last couple of weeks, and which culminated in the summit yesterday. And I'd like to move on and thank all of my colleagues over the years that have supported research, that has enabled us to change what it means to be blind, enabled us to make a little dent in vision health for all Canadians. And last but by no means least, I'd like to thank this lovely woman who's sitting here taking my picture, who's had to put up with me for 51 years.
Stand up, Mary, and take a bow. You deserve it. Come on, stand up. There you go.
And the lovely family that are all at home and that have supported me and Mary for all of these years. Thank you very much, everybody, and thanks for this.
Thank you, Keith. If you leave, we'll help get it out of here for you. Moving on, there's a couple things that we have to discuss. Honoring the Algonquin, Anishinaabe Nation, First Nations, Inuit, Métis peoples, the CCB acknowledges that Ottawa, home of our head office, is built on the unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory. The peoples of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and their presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. The CCB honors the peoples in the land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. The CCB honors all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, and their valuable past and their present contributions to this land we call Canada. Along with the Government of Canada, we at the CCB are committed to renewed nation-to-nation relationships with Indigenous people based on recognition of rights, respect, cooperation, and partnership. You're supposed to applaud because the First Nations deserve it. The second thing I would like to do is talk about a gentleman by the name of Richard Box. And I don't expect anybody in here to know who Richard Box was. Richard Box, for the last 17 years, was a creative genius behind all of Canadian Council of the Blind's graphics. The Canadian Council of the Blind lost a key member with the passing of Richard this last December. Richard passed away from complications from a lengthy and courageous battle with cancer. Rich was a skilled graphic designer whose talent and understanding of the product required for White Cane Wheat made our lives easier, and he finished his product and made us all look great. He was a friend of the CCB, always willing to go the extra mile to create a better product. Richard was an absolute pleasure to work with, kind, considerate, and generous. Those were the written words. What I will tell you this is after 17 years of working with somebody in a rush from December and January to the first week of February to get out a 48 to 60 page magazine, to get all the graphic designs done for the logos and everything that had to be done for registrations and everything, you got to the point where it was a mind read. And you would just work together. I mean, and I never met the man. I never met him in person. He was in Calgary and I was in Toronto, and we did it on the phone, we did it on the computer, we did it every way, which way you could, but we'd never met. And all the intentions of bringing Richard here got involved with his illness and he couldn't quite make it. His family is all in the Netherlands. So tonight, I want to remember Richard. He was an important piece of the CCB and the face of the CCB for a long time. Thank you. If everybody looks around and looks at your tablecloths and the flowers and everything, there's one thing that should come to mind: the Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. The CCB, Canadian Council of the Blind, stands with Ukraine. The Canadian Council of the Blind would like to express its deep concern and support for the people of Ukraine, in particular our brothers and sisters in the blind, deafblind, and partially sighted community, including members of the Ukrainian Association of the Blind. The Russian and Belarusian military assault on Ukrainian settlements and the taking of lives and innocent civilians in an unjustified war violates all norms of international humanitarian law and is a crime against humanity. We further urge the European Union and of the blind and the members of Europe to provide all possible assistance and accommodations to refugees from Ukrainian and visual disabilities. We don't understand all the time what it likes to mean to be blind. And some of us here, most of us here, don't really understand war. World War II, people that lived through World War II are pretty much non-existent now. But if you can imagine the fact that 85% of Canadians think the worst thing that could happen to them is to be blind, take that and add a war. And that's what people, not only those living with blindness, are doing and going through, but those with other disabilities. So think about it, and if you have an opportunity to donate to a cause, please do so. With that in mind, I would like to introduce Carol Hughes, Deputy Speaker of the House, and she is going to introduce a young lady that you might be interested in hearing from.
Well, thank you so much, and for the kind welcome. So things just actually fell into place. I mean, Michael is was really determined to get me here, and so I was a panelist yesterday, and I really appreciate the work that you are all doing, and I want to thank Laurel as well for all the work that she's doing. She's been working with me, or has been pushing me for years on a motion for National Vision Health. So I want to recognize the work that she and her team has been doing as well. So it just so happened that I had an opportunity to take an intern from Ukraine this year, and the interns from Ukraine have not been able to come to Canada for the last couple of years because of COVID. I've never taken the advantage of having an intern for Ukraine, but this year they had 41 of them. And the one that I was matched with actually happened to be studying here since September, so that was good for her in a way. And she'll be able to talk to you a little bit more about what's going on there. But unbeknownst to me, yesterday on my way out of here, Olha was telling me that she has a vision impairment. And she had a vision problem from the time she was a child. So I think that it would be good for her to talk about that and her challenge that she had. So thank you very much. I'll introduce you, Olga Sotska. I hope I said it right.
Thank you very much for the kind words. On behalf of all the Ukrainians, I would like to thank everyone showing solidarity with Ukraine during these challenging times for us. I'm so delighted to see this beautiful decorated room in the colors of Ukrainian flag, blue and yellow, and these beautiful flowers, which are national flowers of Ukraine. Your support is a tremendous sign for us, which inspires us to continue fighting for our freedom. Unfortunately, Ukrainians pay a really high price for our freedom. Every step, every day, we are facing really big challenges just to ensure that we have basic survival. And people who are having vision impairment, or those who are blind, they are facing like double challenges every day. Can you just imagine how it is trying to get to a safe place when you're hearing that missiles are flying, and you need just to rely on the fact that you can hear, but you don't know where to go because infrastructure is destroyed, cities are destroyed, and there is not that many people around. I'm having vision problems since my childhood, and I know how difficult it is to navigate without glasses or lenses. And I can't imagine what people with problems, with vision problems, are facing every day in Ukraine these days. A lot of Ukrainians left Ukraine trying to get a safe harbor, and a lot of them are coming to Canada. And I would like to express gratitude from all the Ukrainians that Canadians are welcoming us and providing so much support. I believe there is no words that can describe how we are feeling and how grateful we are. But I just want to say that everyone deserves to live under the peaceful sky. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ola. I don't think there's anything else I could say about that. And Mr. Proust said, thank God. At this point in time, I would like everybody to stand and raise their glass. To the Queen. God bless her. Thank you. I'm looking at Chef. I've asked Chef Rick Watson wanted to make a comment, so he's at the table. Oh, Rick, where are you?
Good evening, everyone. Nice to be here. You're about to enjoy a fantastic meal that was prepared by the Ottawa Mission Food Service Training Program. The training program is a program that was designed to help people get off social services and back into the workforce. So I want to thank you first off for supporting that program by allowing us to prepare your meal. It's going to be spectacular, trust me. And in particular, I'd like to thank Michael. Michael has supported us and encouraged us to be part of this event for the last 3-4 years. Even though it's been canceled for a couple of years, we were still in correspondence and talking all the time. So, Michael, I have a special gift here for you. It is an official Ottawa Mission hat.
Wow.
For you, my friend. So, thank you very much. Please enjoy your meal.
Thanks, Rick. I would like to introduce Dean Beth Bretzlaff, who is the senior manager, along with our Lord and Savior of this wonderful auspices.
Thank you for the promotion.
Right, and by the way, she's consecrated all the wine tonight, so it's okay.
It's all good.
Okay, so. Dean?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Beth, and I first of all want to say thank you for being here. We are so excited at the cathedral that you are here tonight, dining here on this beautiful sacred property. I think you were one of the last groups, actually, that came before the pandemic, yes. And I was not here then. I was at a different place, and I became dean during the pandemic, so it is my great privilege to welcome you. And I think last year you got a greeting from me that was videoed on the forecourt of the cathedral in a cold wind. So this is much, much better. Anyway, I won't take any more time except to say thank you. This is one of our partnerships, community partnerships that we greatly value here at the cathedral, and you do wonderful work. So thank you very much. And let us pray. God of all, we give you great thanks and joy for this ability to gather this evening, to celebrate your work among us, and to celebrate those who give their time and their energy and their skills to this worthy cause. We ask that you will bless this food and all the hands that prepared it for us, that we may be inspired to act in ways that raise up the abilities of all your people, And we ask that you will give us energy and enthusiasm for all those who need our help in any way, in this land and in places far away. Bless us, bless this food, and bless those whom we serve. We give thanks. Amen. Enjoy.
The last 2 years, we've had to cancel curling. And, you know, they couldn't film curling in their studio, so we just have to wait till next year. But there's some amazing news coming from AMI. This is the annual opportunity for the president of AMI, David Arrington, to tell us all what's going on. And so with that, I'd like to introduce David Arrington, the president of AMI. Thank you.
It's nice to be in front of an audience for the first time in 2 years, so I appreciate the introduction. It's also nice to see the two Jims. I always come, when we come to a CCB event, you have to always come and see Jim and Jim, so nice to see you guys. Thanks for having us again. For those of you who don't know about AMI, we are a content company that produces original content that entertains, informs, and empowers Canadians from the pan-disability community. We operate 3 broadcast services: AMI TV, which is our English service television network, our French service, AMI Télé, and our audio service, AMI Audio. I'm proud to say that I am actually approaching my 13th year at AMI, I think this month, so that's a big milestone for me. Mike, you'd like to know that I was actually 3 months old when the Leafs last won the Stanley Cup. And I'm hoping to see another win in my lifetime, but I'm not counting on it unless I live to be 155, so we'll see. The last 13 years have been a wonderful partnership with the CCB. We both share mutual goals to improve lives of blind and partially sighted Canadians, and we've done a very good job of that in the last 13 years. I do believe that our partnership with the CCB has spanned as long as my tenure at AMI. We've come a long way. We share a lot of stories, but in the end, we do what's right for the blind and partially sighted community and provide services for them. When I first started in 2009, it seems so long ago, our mission was really focused on the mechanics of accessibility of media, of content. There's a real lack of awareness of what described video was back then. I think if you asked 1 in 10 Canadians, 1 may know it, or out of 10 Canadians, 1 may know what it was about. And back then, our real mission was to take other people's content, put it on our service, and make it accessible by offering open description. So you could turn on AMI TV and you can get the last version of Madlock or some old programming or some movies or whatever it would be, and we would have open description for it. And that was really the only source of live or of open description that was available in the Canadian broadcasting system at that time. The CRTC mandated that other broadcasters do a minimum of 4 hours of 4 hours of description per week, and they would normally bury that in the middle of the night. So we've come a long way since then. So in 2009, we launched our original channel with open description. It was the only place I had the broadcaster's content. And as the years passed and we advocated on behalf of the community and we proved the importance of description in live TV and all these different innovations that we came about, in 2019, the CRTC mandated that all Canadian broadcasters, foreign and Canadian, must make 100% of their content accessible in prime time with description. So right now, when you turn on your TV at night, 100% of prime time, with the exception of news and live event sports, has description. So you look back 13 years ago, it was 4 hours per week. Now it's pretty well ubiquitous, just like closed captioning would be. And I think a lot of that is because of the efforts of ourselves and organizations like the CCB of advocating on behalf of the community. Digital platforms are becoming more compliant, and accessibility is now embedded in most media content offerings available in Canada. However, there is some work to be done. New set-top boxes are a voice activator, making the consumption of content more accessible for the blind and partially sighted audience. And for those of you who don't have an accessible box or set-top voice activated box at home and you are from the community, please access it. It's available on Rogers Xfinity box. It's a game changer for you to help you navigate your television options out there. And all this, in fact, the Canadian broadcasting system is a world leader in this regard. And I think organizations like us contribute to that. So if you think about every other country around the world, Canada is actually leading with respect to accessibility in their media content consumption. And that's something we shall be very, very proud of. This major change in policy to have all content accessible or described in prime time kind of made us at AMI think about, well, what is our future? Because you can go now and get your content everywhere. You don't have to come to us to get your special content. And that forced us to move away from the mechanics of accessibility to become a media company that produces original content that tells the stories of the pan disability community in general. And we've really transferred that in the last 3 to 5 years. So it's content that's produced by the community and for the community. So we actually have people from the community in front of the camera telling stories from their perspective. We have people from behind the camera helping us produce content from the disability community, and that's kind of our mandate now. We're getting really good at it. We have award-winning shows such as Employable Me, Fashion Dis. We have entertaining programs such as Pas de Panique en Cuisine, and informative programs such as our daily live programs now with Dave Brown and Kelly & Co. Note, there's no other channel like AMI in the world, something we should be very proud of. We're unique, we're Canadian, and we're looking to showcase our original content throughout the world on various platforms. All this is great news, but we still do have some challenges at AMI, believe it or not. As you may not be aware, all of our funding comes from Canadian satellite subscriber fees. So a certain number of cents on your cable bill comes to us every month, and we appreciate that very, very much. So don't be too hard on Rogers and Bell and people like that. They're good people. However, with the onslaught of new OTT services such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and Apple TV, have resulted in a steady decline in cable subscribers, and thus our annual revenues are declining as well. The Canadian broadcasting system enforces numerous commitments that the cable and satellite companies must contribute to the system. This allows channels like us to exist, and APTN and CPAC and numerous other channels such as that. Foreign entities described above, such as Netflix and Amazon, they don't have these obligations. While at the same time, they do benefit and profit from the Canadian market. So I'm in Ottawa, so I thought I would lobby a little bit. It's the place to do that, right? So this is why it's important to support the passing of Bill C-11. Its intention is to force large, not small, large, foreign entities to contribute their fair share or a small percentage of their profits back into the Canadian system that supports services such as ours and Canadian content in general. Thank you. This is critical to our future and our existence and the Canadian broadcasting system as a whole. The Canadian broadcasting system is admired around the world, and as it is a balance between the US market conditions while at the same time maintaining our cultural identity within media. This is why our system is special and needs to be safeguarded. AMI would like to appreciate the CCB's approach, our support with this approach, and our upcoming license renewal, and I know I can count on the 2 Jims for that. And all this being said, I'd just like to appreciate the time to come up here and lobby you a little bit, have a little bit of fun, have a nice meal. And again, thank everyone in the room for your support, and look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you.
As David is sitting down, I just want to remind people that sometimes you don't know where AMI is on your TV. And I was at lunch once with Janice Davison-Prestwick and Peter Burke, and I was half-assed complaining. Ever since then, if I screw up changing the channel, the default channel I get is 48 AMI. It's great to see everybody here tonight. But the fact that everybody here tonight, there's some people that need to be recognized. And so I think in the last 5 years I've done this, I've never recognized some people that are behind the scenes that make my life easier. And so at this point, I'm going to do that. Everybody, I'm going to ask them to stand, but the past president, Louise Gillis. The devoted present president, Mr. Jim Tulkas. And I can get fired for this next one, and I dare him. The executive director of the Canadian Council of the Blind, who speaks with me every single day and is working very hard for the Canadian Council of the Blind, Mr. Jim Prowse. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Prowse's boss, Becky Goodwin. Would you please stand? The tech guy that keeps Louise and Jim understanding their computers, Mohammed Salim. An individual that helps run the mobile eye clinics, Monica Retinuge. And finally, there's a number of staff that aren't here. Shelley Ann Morris, who answers the phone every day and works hard. Kim Kilpatrick, who's one of the leaders with the GTE program, to get together with technology. Corey Suvi, who's out in Vancouver, or Victoria, and David Green, who's with the GTT here. And one final person. I met this man 20 years ago. He has been an enlightenment regarding the mobile eye clinics. He's never been recognized. He's never been asked to be recognized, and he will be very upset that I'm doing it. But Mr. Richard Doris, would you please stand? It's a good way to get him to stop calling. With that, the other thing I want to address is, if you look at the banners, they're different. Every year you hear me talk and thank people that are gold sponsors and are different sponsors. But over the last couple of years, it's grown and it's different than that. So the people that support us and who we support in our efforts for people with vision loss and for people that are living with blindness and living the experience of blindness. If you look in the far wall where it says Vision Health Month 2022, in my 17 years, I've never seen those 10 signatures all together on a petition for preventable blindness or for any petition whatsoever. There's been 3 or 4 here, 3 or 4 there. But that group got together, and that's really important because those are the people that are behind the fact that we need a national eye strategy for eye health, that we need a vision desk in Ottawa, and that we have more research dollars, and you're going to hear about that later on. So those people are there. The people behind me are people that not only represent the fact that they were participating sponsors with us tonight, but there's people on that panel and the panel behind me that allowed that we were able to do studies on the effect of COVID on people living with vision loss, that we were allowed to do, that participated and provided grants and money so that we could do the cost of blindness and the cost of vision loss and blindness in Canada, a study that hadn't been done in 13 years and was long overdue, and a number of other things that are ongoing. And I know some people are like saying, oh, wow, You sit down and you talk to this pharmaceutical company, and you know they want a letter or they want you to support for CADIF. That's a very simple, wrong-minded position to take. There's nobody that comes to the CCB or Fighting Blindness Canada or other groups that we're involved in that we don't sit and have people like Larissa Moniz, Keith Gordon, Dr. Keith Gordon, Dr. Chad Andrews. These people do the research. They research papers and they look at everything. We believe it's very important that people living with vision loss get the best medicines available. And we will fight tooth and nail to get those best medicines available. And that means that we'll work with Novartis and deal with Lucentis, and we'll work with Bayer, and we'll deal with Eylea, and we'll work with Bausch & Lomb for what the new products coming on the market, because it's important that we deal with it. And then there's other studies that we're looking at doing that are really important to everybody in this room. So we're thanking you for the support we have and asking for your continued support. And now we'll carry on with the rest of the evening. So with that in mind, I would like to introduce a very good friend of the CCB, a past President's Award winner, Uta Trevianis, who's the founding Inclusive Design Research Center at OCAD University, and she has a special announcement to make about something that we've accomplished in the CCB and a number of other stakeholders working together over 15 months, and it's something that we've accomplished. And I think it's there's a slide coming up. If you take a look, AEBC, Balance for Blind Adults, the CCB, CNIB, Fighting Blindness Canada, and OCAD University. The research we did on ATP was funded by a grant from OCAD, but I forget who the people behind that was. So with no further ado, Uta Trevianis.
Thank you, Michael, and I'll keep this good news short and sweet. I can't wait to hear Luna speak later tonight. So, as Michael said, we have some very good news, or we've made quite a bit of progress. Ontarians are lucky in that we have a program that helps people get the assistive technology that they need to participate in society. But like many other programs that are intended to help or assist persons with disabilities, it started out with great ideals and commitments, and unfortunately political pressures meant that policing the program became more important actually than assisting people that needed the program and the services. The many protections that against potential abuse meant that the process became more and more complex and harder for people to follow. And more critically, in a field where things are changing at a faster and faster pace, the devices that were funded could not keep up with the technical advance. Well, we all know that our computers update almost every day, but ADP would only update the equipment every 5 years. Because of the fear of abuse of the program, the best and least expensive devices were not funded, only the expensive special devices. And funding cuts created fewer authenticators, long waits, and inequitable services for people in rural and remote areas and locations who had to travel for hours and hours and great distances. And as a result, a potentially really amazing program failed to serve the people that needed it the most, especially people with, who are living with blindness or vision loss. So CCB and led a group that studied the issues, gathered evidence, and finally, and this is the good news, persuaded the government of Ontario to review the program, to bring the program back to the original ideals and commitments. And thanks to CCB and its partners, the Ontario government will convene a review committee and consider the very well-founded and supported recommendations of the CCB study. And thank you to all of you that participated and helped us gather evidence. We hope you will help in this next stage of bringing more equitable access to people who are living with blindness and vision loss, and also to all of the other individuals that require the ADP. Luckily, this particular group will be leading in bringing the program back to the commitments and ideals. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Uda. I just want to add one thing to it. It was interesting because it came down to a solid, as Aaron Shui, who works with me from Capitol Hill in Toronto, will attest, it came down to a 3-day all-out, kill or be killed, really good debate. But I have to admit, the government of Ontario, on both sides, politically and from the bureaucracy, worked with us. They met with us 5 or 6 times each, and it got down to very specifics and very important negotiations. And in the end, we got a phone call and said, we're going to go along with what your recommendations are. We will go fully along with all your recommendations that outline a process that goes forward. And I said, well, you know, there's going to be an election and change it. So what we did and what happened was Minister Elliott signed off on it. Minister Elliott put it in the book that will go to the next Minister of Health. And we got a letter from Mr. Patrick Descerny, who is on the bureaucracy side, that runs OHIP and hospitals and the ADP program. And it was a 2-page letter fulfilling everything we asked. So, you know, we worked with them, you know, we had some fighting but tooth and nail about it, but in the end we worked together and we came to a conclusion that's in the best interest of everybody. So starting in one meeting in June, but 2 meetings in July, we will be moving forward with the recommendations, and hopefully we will benefit the vision loss community, because I guess the one important thing to let you know, and the reason that we really got into this, is there's a $620 million program for the ADP program. We had 6,000 people on average with vision loss applying to the program. Those 6,000 people were spending $2.9 million. 2/3 of it was spent on low vision devices like canes and magnifiers, and only 1/3 of it was being spent on people that actually needed important things and computers and everything. And there was a myriad of problems about it. But the point we wanted to know is, why aren't people with vision loss using it? And the biggest thing is, they don't sponsor cell phones. They won't give people with vision loss smartphones. And yet 78% of the people, anybody with vision loss in this room will tell you, the most important thing in the last 10 years that affected us is a smartphone. It allows us to do GPS and everything else we want to do. So it's a really good success. And like I said, we couldn't have gone forward with what we did without the help of OCAD and Uda Trevianis, and then the support of the, it's not there anymore, but the support of the stakeholders in Ontario that were concerned. So anyways, thank you very much. A lot has happened in the last 3 or 4 years, And a lot of it has come because of people working together, but no bigger influencer on working together is the person I'm about to introduce, and he's the president, CEO of Fighting Blindness Canada, Mr. Doug Earle. Doug?
I'm a bit shocked, Michael, but normally you would have a few other things to say about me, so I wasn't quite ready to come up. But
Jim said I couldn't use those words.
No, I know. So thank you for this opportunity to speak with you tonight, and I wanted to just recognize at this moment. Because it is our first gathering in a long time with all of the various partners for the vision loss community that's in this room. And I thought that if I could take a few moments just to talk about partnership. And of course, when I joined Fighting Blindness Canada in December 2018, I was reminded of a quote by Helen Keller. And alone, she wrote, "Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much." And I think that that's been a principle that I have followed in my role. And when I met Michael at this event in 2019, it became very clear that the Canadian Council of the Blind, and Michael in particular, had shared that value that Helen Keller had enunciated. And so as we followed up our meeting, it became very clear that there were some things that we shared, that we wanted to do together, that we knew that our voice would be stronger working together. And so in this room in February of 2020, that magical year, 2020, what we're all hoping for, of perfect vision, that we had a summit about what in 2020 Canadians valued for vision. And there were well over 600 people across the country that participated in that process. Staff at Vision Loss Rehab, at the Canadian Association of Optometrists, the Canadian Ophthalmological Society, the list goes on, the CNIB, CCB, FPC. We did surveys, we involved people, we listened. And from that, Chad spent many an hours preparing 3 white papers that then we went back to all those people and asked their opinions about the white paper. We had a conference in this room that was broadcast live before COVID and Zoom. We didn't know about Zoom at that time. And we had people ask questions, and from that was white papers around 3 critical topics. Of course, research, have to say that from Fighting Blindness Canada, but also 2 other papers around living with vision loss and the vision healthcare system. And that really set out the roadmap for what were the priorities for the community. It helped feed the discussion that took place amongst the various partners. And we were very excited, and it helped, I think, with the change in leadership that actually the community came together. Because up until this time, we were not speaking with one voice. For many years, the CNIB, the CCB, ourselves at Fighting Blindness, we were working with the optometrists, going to Parliament Hill each year, but we didn't have all our partners. So it took a lot of hard work, and I don't see Laurel here, but it took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of conversations. It took a lot of sharing of values, those white papers leading the way, that now you see on the wall all the different organizations that have come together with one voice that has an agenda to improve healthcare for people living with vision loss, to prevent blindness for those over 8 million Canadians that are living with a blinding eye disease, that are at risk of losing sight, that don't have to, because research has delivered treatments that 3 out of 4 can stabilize their sight, in some cases even repair it if it's diagnosed early enough and they have access to treatment. And that one voice, this is the first month that we're back at Parliament Hill again in 2 years to talk to decision makers about what are our priorities and why we need this, and why it's not good enough to make promises on the world stage 5 times and not deliver to Canadians here in the country. So, Ms. Hughes, you and your colleagues, you know we're coming. We've been with you all the way, thank you. But we have a few more of your peers to get on board. But we also work together, and many of you in this room, I have to say thank you to, because we delivered a cost of vision loss study in Canada last year. And I can look at a few people in the room, and we tried one way to get funding, and we had to flip it around and do it another way. But we were able to raise the funds from our funding partners to be able to deliver this study, so that as Keith, who is our principal investigator, was able to again update the stats, and they're quite shocking. The number of people living with uncorrectable vision loss doubled in the last decade. The cost to the system has not, because of innovation, because of research that has delivered new treatments. But there is an impact. We had to enunciate it. It wasn't good enough to talk about data that was 13 years old. So it is a landmark study, and we are going to get it published, right, Keith? So that it is in the record and it can be shared. And then to share the story about what COVID has meant to the impact of the vision loss community that we announced in October with all of our partners. And that, there were over 120 million impressions happened between those 2 studies and the earned media that we obtained in 2021 about vision loss and the impact of COVID. And we've actually inspired 4 other disease peers of fighting blindness to do a similar model to help enunciate what the COVID impact has been on their diseases. And you'll be hearing about these studies as they come out in the next few months. But that's what a community working together can do when we have one voice, when we can be stronger together than single voices alone. Because it is that enunciation about getting access to treatment that the CNIB, CCB, Fighting Blindness, Vision Loss Rehab, and occasionally Diabetes Canada joins in when it's a diabetes-related matter, to be able to share the voice of what it means to live with vision loss and what the impact of innovation can do to help improve that quality of life, those treatments, to be able to stabilize your sight. We were able to enunciate in that study that the progression from mild to moderate to severe vision loss had slowed down because of innovation, because people had access to treatment. And we cannot let up the fight, because the system will fight against us. The system, if we leave it alone, will take months and months and months for people to have access to treatment that innovation is delivering today. They don't have to go and lose more sight because of treatments that are available. So working together and writing with one voice for our submissions to CADTH and the other regulatory bodies is critical. And that's how we work together to be able to get new innovative treatments into Canadians, available to Canadians. So what does the future mean by us working together? First off, we are going to have a report card 12 months after our COVID report was released on World Sight Day, And we're going to make sure that the provincial and federal governments are held accountable for what they haven't done and celebrate what they have done in the last 12 months based on the findings of the study. Critical to have a measuring post and to be able to do it on an annual basis. And this idea was not ours. It actually came from our partners, but we're very happy to be a part of the community working together in order to be able to answer and to enunciate what has happened and what needs to happen. Because of our little conversation, Michael, you know, we're both trying to figure out why that's a magic age of 65 that you can get a fundable annual regular eye exam in this country from coast to coast. We can't figure out why that's a magic age. So we're actually working on doing a study in Ontario, looking at OHIP billing codes retrospectively to add, inform when people are getting diagnosed with the glaucoma, AMD, diabetic retinopathy, etc., cataracts, and other blinding eye diseases. And then we're going to go out and demographically select 3,000 Ontarians and actually do the exam and compile all of this data to actually have Canadian data. Not a study done 30 years ago in some place in the United States or Denmark, but actually have Canadian real-life data reflecting the community that we live in today, not 30 years ago, around the prevalence of eye disease in this province and extrapolate it to the country. Because we want, the third part of the study will be doing the cost-benefit analysis of what actually is the age, just like screening programs we have for breast and other that I was involved in advocating for, that we could actually have proactive, validated data to say that the age really should be 50-ish, I think. But we're going to prove and find out what it is. So and it'll be Canadian reflecting us today. That's what working together in a stronger voice can do. And we're also out there right now, 350,000 impressions last week with stopvisionloss.ca. We are asking everyone, so please pull out your phones. ADP didn't pay for it, but I know you have them. That you can fill out the petition.
They're not pulling out their phones.
There, come on. So stopvisionloss.ca, sign our petition. Our member, Carol Hughes, has promised to deliver 25 of them at a time. She is going to be very busy delivering petitions for a National Vision Health Plan, a vision desk in Public Health Canada, and increasing research funding in this country so that when we don't have to go from 1.2 million Canadians living with uncorrectable vision loss today, growing without a change in policy, without new treatments that research can deliver, to 2 million in 2050. We have a crisis of preventable blindness in this country that we don't need, because we know that if you get early diagnosed and you have access to treatment, that people do not need to go blind. And that's what stopvisionloss.ca is all about. And that's what Helen Keller said, that alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. True words, and it's because of the people in this room, the support that you give us, and everyone working together, that we have one stronger voice, and we have an agenda to deliver for people living with vision loss. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Earl. 17 years ago, the first call I made as a representative of CCB for a sponsor was in the bowels of Union Station, and I was there to see Catherine Klulutny of Via Rail Canada. And what we were looking for was some help regarding our curling team and vouchers and everything. And they had asked us to come back after the previous year. 17 years later, Via Rail is still with us. Our people work with, you're going to hear a little bit about it, but our people from Jim Tulkas to focus groups to new rail cars to renovated cars, we have worked with them numerous occasions over the last 17 years and more so in the last 3 years. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Catherine Langlois from Via Rail Canada. And Catherine's got a little surprise for you later.
Well, if you're able to see me, I'll stay there because I feel like the pedestal is higher than me. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine Langlois. I'm Senior Advisor in Universal Accessibility at Via Rail. As you can hear, English is not my first language, so please bear with me. It brings me great pleasure to be with you in person tonight and to share with you some of the accessibility projects Via Rail has on its horizon. I'm especially happy to know that one of our longtime friends and collaborator, Jim Tulkas, is also here with us today. Jim has been monumental in helping us every time we want to improve our services for people who are blind. And I know it's late, but bear with me for a few more minutes. It's worth hanging around for a little longer. At the end of my presentation, I will be drawing numbers, for 2 pairs of train tickets. For over 2 years now, Via Rail has been hit hard, like most companies in the transportation industry. Fortunately, this period is now behind us, and our service is back up and running again. Our service will soon be in full swing in June, with most departures and frequencies restored the way they were before the pandemic. And let me tell you this, at Via Rail, we are very excited about hitting the rails again. We can't wait to welcome our passengers on board and to return to normal after 2 long years, which is great news for all Canadians. What's more, the accessibility team at Via Rail never stopped making progress. We continued working on our projects throughout the pandemic. In fact, we doubled down. During those 2 years, we not only published our first accessibility policy, but also became the first transportation company to publicly publish our multi-year accessibility plan to comply with the Accessible Canada Act. Our plan contains 12 projects, including pilot projects, that will be deployed over a 5-year period. An important consideration for this plan is that it was not conceived by us alone. We consulted different disability advocacy groups to create the plan. We can assure you that the projects in the plan address the needs and concerns of our customers with disabilities. Among the many projects in our plan is one concerning station accessibility. The multi-dimension project will ensure the arrival and entrance at many stations are safe and accessible for people with disabilities. Most of you will also be happy to learn that in our plan, there's an autonomous wayfinding pilot project, and this will be for both our trains and our stations. We're actually holding a workshop tomorrow on this project with some of our committee members. Our projects will have an impact on several fields, such as communication, through the creation of videos in American Sign Language and langue des signes québécoise for the Via Rail website. Human resources is another field targeted in our plan. For that, we've created an accessibility awareness training for all employees, which encompasses the employee working on our trains, our customer relation employees, as well as for the employees working in our offices and all the leaders, including the CEO of VRL. We are also striving for equity in our recruitment by removing bias in the hiring process and by making our recruitment policy more accessible to everyone. Not to mention, we are working on an accessible procurement process to integrate accessibility early in the decision process before projects are underway. You can access this plan on our website. It's available in French and English in accessible PDF, large print, and audio formats. If you prefer a physical copy in an accessible format, such as Braille, send us a request and we'll be sure to send you a copy as soon as we can. It goes without saying that if I'm speaking about accessibility at VRL, I'd be remiss not to provide an update on the new fleet of trains that will start to enter service late this year and start to offer commercial service in 2023 in the Quebec-Windsor corridor. These new trains will offer a fully accessible, barrier-free travel experience that better meets the needs of people with disabilities and their support person. These trains will be equipped with Braille and embossed signage, attendant call buttons at mobility aid spaces, on-board announcement made in both audio and visual formats, mobility aid spaces with electrical outlets, USB port, and adjustable tables. And we're going to have more space for service dogs than in our current fleet. We're going to also have a it's a tongue twister for a francophone, a dedicated luggage area for mobility aid spaces, and of course, an integrated wheelchair lift and mobility aid space in both economy and business classes. This is just a small list of accessibility features that will make up this next generation of accessible travel at VRL. Later this year, we'll invite the CCB and our other accessibility partners to visit these trains and test these features. One last important update I'd like to share with you. VRL now has an accessibility advisory committee, and the CCB is a member of it. This committee will be involved in our accessibility projects because we want to make sure that the initiatives we undertake are contributing to a barrier-free Canada. Thank you for your time. Let's now proceed with the drawing. Okay, you have all no?
Almost ready?
I am. Are you?
Yep, I got it.
Everyone ready? Yeah? Okay. So you have your name card. Behind, there's a number.
Okay.
Under strict supervision.
You got my ticket, right?
And to confuse everyone, I'm going to read the numbers in French. No, I'm kidding. Okay, everyone. 3, 4, 0, 3, 3. Bravo.
I got that ticket. Catherine, why don't you come along front with Jim and you can give it and get a picture. So,
oh, yeah.
And then you can draw you can go around, just go around front and we can go. Wait, stay right there, Jim. She's going to come. Okay. No. We forgot already.
Okay. 3, 4, 0, 8, 4.
Now you realize you've only won one set of tickets, not the 3 that weren't claimed. That's okay, we trust you.
Thank you.
A long time ago, I might have said, we've saved the best for last. I can't really say that tonight, but we've definitely saved some really good stuff for the end. Mr. Tulkas didn't speak a lot about Luna Bengio when she was most deservedly named the CCB Person of the Year. Part of that reason is because she has a colleague here, Mr. Alfred MacLeod from the Treasury Board of Canada, Secretariat of Canada. Not quite sure which way that goes. But is here, and he's going to introduce our keynote speaker.
Thank you, Michael. And so people don't lose sleep tonight, it's the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat. Maybe I'll start with a little story. There have been a lot of good stories already tonight, so I don't want to compete, and I don't want this to be the best story, but it's my story of how I came to know Luna. It was 2018, and I was working at that time in a department in the Government of Canada, and our minister was Minister Carla Qualtrough. And we thought it was a good idea that our department show some leadership on disability inclusion and accessibility. And I just happened to be the person who at that time was asked to develop a little bit of an approach. And we did. And we were missing one person, someone who was going to make it happen. So I called my friend, who then was the Deputy Minister of Infrastructure, Yasmin LaRoche, who today is the Deputy Minister of Public Service Accessibility. And I said, I need the best person you know to come over here and help us. We have a team, but we really need someone who can kickstart our work on this because we're really behind. And she said, well, the best person is Luna Bengio. I'll give you her contact information. So I called Luna and I tried to lure her over to work with us, and she turned me down. But that's okay, you know, disappointments happen in life. And as it turned out, within a few months, I went over to work with Luna because she had accepted a better job in the Office of Public Service Accessibility with Yasmin LaRoche. So since 2018, Luna and I have been colleagues. And it's ironic, really, that I'm up here tonight introducing her because for 2 years, I would go to meetings and I'd ask Luna to come with me. And then at the beginning of the meeting, I would say, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Luna Bengio. And so for 6 months, I only would hear one answer when I would say that. Oh, Luna and I know each other. And after 6 months, I said I would never introduce Luna again. But I've thrown that principle aside to introduce Luna tonight. Now, there's a beautiful magazine on the table, the White Cane magazine, and it has a wonderful tribute to Luna, incredibly well written. It's a beautiful thing. It tells you everything that you would want to know about Luna, and it gives more than enough evidence to show why she was invited to be the recipient this year of the prestigious award. And so what I would like to share with you is just really my observation of what we who have had the privilege of working with Luna know about her. And it really enables her to do wonderful things, I think, in her family, with her colleagues, and with people who come and ask her for help. Everyone knows Luna, and one of the reasons people know Luna is that they know that she is a very giving spirit, and she's always willing to help. Far better person than I am. Many a day I would go into Luna's office and I would try not to use profane language because I know Luna does not appreciate that. And I would say, you wouldn't believe what so-and-so is asking us to do now. It is totally outrageous. And she would say, you're right, Alfred. It's outrageous. But if we don't do it, who will? And so, the one thing, and we're getting late in the evening, and the one thing that we have learned about Luna, and Yuta referred to it a little bit, is the more time people spend listening to Luna, the better off it is, because she always allows us to learn something. But I guess the one thing that we know is that it's rare in life to come across a person. Well, it's not rare to come across people who have principles. It is rare, though, to come across a person for whom principles aren't a trophy. They're tools. They're dynamic instruments that need to be used, and they need to be used to advance a cause. And I think that's what we in the Office of Public Service Accessibility have learned and have appreciated so much about Luna, is not only does she know what she believes in, not only is she an incredibly rigorous executive, but she lives her principles and gets things done. So with that, I would like to introduce Luna Bengio.
So good evening, everyone. And what to say after those kinds of words, which touch me so, so deeply, as much as the recognition or the distinction that CCB has given me. It was such a surprise. It was so overwhelming, because I never thought I would be standing here in a group like this and addressing you. So thank you so much. Thanks so much, Alfred. You've been such a wonderful colleague. You're such a wonderful colleague, and I feel so fortunate that I still get to work with you, and to Michael and the CCB. Thank you so very much. So today, I want to really appreciate and recognize one side of the work that CCB is doing, which is so important. And you heard Doug Earl talk about preventable blindness and treatments and the importance of research. And that is such necessary work to do, even in a developed country like Canada, where we have relatively good access to healthcare compared to other places in this world. Maybe during this pandemic it has been more difficult, but still we can count ourselves fortunate and privileged that we have that access to healthcare. Even in a country like Canada, we could do better. We could do better. And if today you asked me, would you like to see? I'd say yes, of course, I'd love to see. There's so many wonderful things that you can take in with your vision. Do I then support the work that maybe one day, perhaps not in my lifetime, but maybe one day we'll find treatments for degenerative conditions that cause blindness? I'd say absolutely, and I really think that CCB and its partners are really giving a gift to Canada and Canadians, and to those kids who are coming after us, and to those adults who are still experiencing vision loss. So I want to recognize that side of things. But I'm here to tell you that in my day-to-day life, one of my mottos, and my colleagues have heard me say this, is I don't need to be fixed. And remember, I told you if I could see, I would love to see, but I still don't need to be fixed, because I don't think there's anything broken with a person with a disability. I think it's our environment. I think it's the attitudes. I think it's the culture that really causes people to experience barriers and to face obstacles and to struggle for the simplest things in life. I was thinking this morning, actually, that I wanted to change my washing machine for the very specific reason that it's one of those digital fantastic things that if you have the misfortune of pressing the button in the wrong way, well, you've just changed the cycle. And if you can't see the buttons, or you can't see what's written on the screen, well, you're toast. Kind of, you just change your cycle completely. And my daughters are here; they will attest of how frustrated I am with that washing machine. And I was thinking, okay, so what do I need to do? Where do I find something as sort of mundane as a washing machine? And where do I find one that is going to be accessible, and that I'm not going to have to do 1-800-Sandra and put her on WhatsApp? Sandra's my daughter. So 1-800-Sandra, put her on WhatsApp, show her the screen, and tell her, what does it say now? So that's really what needs to be fixed. That's an example of why accessibility is so important. That's an example or a reason why the Accessible Canada Act, as much as it is framework legislation, gives me hope that we will live in a Canada where those barriers will start to disappear, where we will eventually, with technology, with a lot of the innovation that we see these days, with cell phones. Who would have thought? Who would have thought, like a few years ago, even for me, like even 5 years ago, that I would have a phone that can tell me where I am, where I'm going, where I can read my email and do my business, my work, and etc. So with the help of technology, the physical or the environmental barriers will progressively, I hope, start to disappear and start to crumble. So that's one side of things. But then, what about people's attitudes? What about our culture as a society? Michael said earlier, if you ask 85% of Canadians, what do they fear most? Is to lose their sight, because they can't imagine how you would function without your sight. And that kind of fear, of myth, of the words escape me, to be honest, to qualify what that fear is, and it's legitimate and I understand, is still what really holds us back. I feel particularly privileged standing here talking to you about accessibility and talking to you about culture, because I've spent more than 30 years as a public servant where it wasn't always easy, and getting access to adaptive technology was a struggle, and getting a technician to understand how my screen reader works is still a struggle today, right? But when I was hearing the young lady from Ukraine talk, and I was thinking, okay, well, I come from, I need to recognize the privilege that I have, and I need to continue this work. I need to continue speaking up so that those myths disappear, so that we start to value people for who they are. I'm blind. It's only one side of things, or one side of me. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a grandmother, I'm an avid lover of history. I enjoy music. I don't enjoy cooking. My daughters will tell you. But so that there's so many. I'm a first-generation immigrant to Canada, and I bring with me a very rich culture from my family and my traditions. So everybody has multiple sides to who they are. And I would love to walk in a room one day and feel that it's not just my white cane that people are looking at and wondering, well, how does she function in life? It's also me as a person. It's also, understanding who I am and what I bring. My white cane, I have to tell you, was my ticket to freedom. I grew up in a very sheltered environment where my parents protected me a lot, were confronted with something they weren't familiar with, and felt that they had to make life easier for me. And so when, as a teenager, I was lucky enough to meet people who told me, hey, we will teach you how to get around with a white cane. That was freedom. I could finally go out without my parents. I could finally go out without my brothers or sisters. So my white cane remains the symbol of freedom for me. And that's really, really important. So if people see it as a symbol of limitation, I see it as a positive symbol. I see it as, this is what enables me to do what I want to do. Whether it's a lot or a little, it doesn't matter. So the same thing for, adaptive technology or anything that people use or any way that people function differently. It needs to be seen as just the fact that we are, each one of us, a unique human being with their skills and with their talents and with their quirks and with everything else that comes with it, and not just to focus on the disability. So that's why my sentence is, I don't need to be fixed, right? Thank you so very much for the opportunity to talk to you. I know it's getting late, and I know you've listened to a lot of people. I just want to really, really say one thing about the Canadian Public Service, because it is and continues to be a wonderful place to work. We have a ways to go to ensure that everybody gets the support, the measures, the accommodations that they need. But we also have an opportunity with the Accessible Canada Act to make a difference. And that's why I feel it is so important to continue doing this work. So once again, there are so many reasons why we need to be grateful for what we have, and not just focus on what we don't have. And that's, again, the way to learn to live with something that where the world is not necessarily welcoming for you, but it's something you need to think about, okay, so this is what I don't have, but this is what I have. And if I think it's wonderful the work that Utah and CCB are doing around ADP, because that makes such a difference, especially since we know that people who are blind are usually have more difficulty accessing employment, so can't necessarily afford all of this technology that they need in order to make their lives more easier and smoother and less stressful. And so therefore, fantastic work on ADP. One of the recommendations, I can't miss the opportunity of being at this podium not to make a recommendation. And Michael knows this because he and I have had many a debate over the phone. One thing I would recommend, I think we need to measure that there is a cost to having a disability, that we don't live in a level playing field, that if I need let's say the washing machine that is going to be accessible, it's probably going to be like a high-end model, or it's going to probably going to be something that is more expensive. If as a blind person you need to get around and there's no public transportation, well, you don't drive, so you need to make sure you're able to take taxis, etc., etc. There is a cost to living with a disability, and that's an important thing that needs to be recognized as well. And at the same time as we're advocating for employment of people with disabilities, as we're advocating for access to the adaptive devices and technologies that they need, we need to recognize that there is a cost to that. And I'd love to see a study done and it being documented with evidence and research to see that happen. Michael knows I'm always asking, is this document accessible? Is that document accessible? And I think it's by speaking up. It's by always being able to say it respectfully, but clearly what your needs are, that we're going to be able to progress. One of the reasons, other social movements have perhaps progressed more than the disability community is because they've been able to be more vocal, they've been able to speak up. And even then, we see so much discrimination and myths and stereotypes. But still, I think we need to speak up. So when and again, when I come across something that's not accessible, I'm never going to stop saying it's not accessible. I'm going to say, look, it's not accessible. I can help you. I can tell you where it is. And I'm always, and it's true, I want to be part of the solution, but I think it's important to continue to speak up. And so that's why organizations like CCB are important, so that people have a voice, so that people can speak up. So once again, I want to thank you for the honor that you've given me. I take it with all humility, and I want to share it with my colleagues, some of whom are here this evening, because they've worked with me. They've made it possible for me to do what I do. Definitely with my Office of Public Service Accessibility family, and especially with my family. So thank you again very, very much.
Everybody's standing. I don't know why. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.